In the game of competitive Pokemon, you might be games where you'll just be frustrated, you'll feel like there's no way of winning, and you pretty much lost because of just one Pokemon. Smogon handles that frustration by possibly banning those Pokemon, or at least putting them up on a suspect test to just relieve that frustration and just move on with the rest of the game and the rest of the tiers. Well, in the game of Pokemon, that might create a reverse power creep. A reverse power creep is a scenario where any kind of new update, new game will just bring about a strong Pokemon out of nowhere, pretty much. We saw in Gen 6, a new game comes out where you get Mega Stones, so we decided to ban those because they were deemed too strong. We banned Mega Mawile, we banned Blaziken, we banned Aegislash, which was a new Pokemon. And now with Oras, with new moves coming onto a new Pokemon, we have to ban Greninja. We've heard a lot of talk about Greninja over the past couple of weeks when it was on suspect tests and ended up getting banned. And interesting enough, how a lot of people really felt like it shouldn't have been banned, but those weren't the people that were banning it. There were people that banned it were people on a showdown ladder and just said, yeah, we should do it. It's deemed too strong. There was an article you could find on the Showdown website or on Smogon website in a forum saying why it should be banned. There's a few points. I can link that below. There's another article. The same guy, in less than a day, is able to gather enough coil to get on the ladder to have a vote on banning, and he came up with the full article saying, yeah, I don't think we should ban it. It's not that strong. I can link that article in too, and you can kind of see the article that is against the ban pretty much just counteracts everything the guy says with the ban, but no one really sees it like that. They just see, yeah, I like what this guy said with the ban. Why should we ban? I'm just going to agree with that. Why not? They don't really think about it a lot. Yes, it does have a great move pool. That's the guy's first point stands for it. It has an amazing move pool. I'm not going to lie to you there, and I'm not going to doubt you or argue with that. It has an amazing move pool that gives it the opportunity to check a lot of Pokemon. That's great. Let's, Pokemon, make them move tutors, give them moves, and make them, viable or even more viable, because yes, Greninja was already strong to begin with. Now, on one of his second points, where he mentions it turns Pokemon into a guessing game, or too much of a guessing game. Well, let me just go back and think here for a second. Let's just all back when we first played Pokemon, it was a guessing game. We didn't know what people were running back then 100%, and even today we could still be surprised. So all Pokemon actually is a guessing game, and if you don't want to be in that, then why are you even playing Pokemon? Why are you even talking about it? That's just me on a personal note. Now, he even mentioned that it's too much of a guessing game a few times in that article saying why it should be banned and how it just completely counters or just checks other Pokemon too hard and how those Pokemon can't switch into. Now, the article that's against the ban, the guy says, well, it doesn't really get destroyed by balance, or it doesn't destroy balanced teams. Yes, it kind of stops balanced teams. Balanced teams have a harder time, but there are other ways around it. That's a good way of playing around it. Just play around the game. You don't have to just get rid of them. Just play around everything. It doesn't really stop hyper-offensive teams. And Stall has no problem against Greninja. So why would we really ban it? So you guys can go check out those articles and anything like that. Now, I mentioned here, you see the topic of the day, fixing OU and Smogon. Now, I feel like there are ways where we could kind of just fix, things on Smogon. Everything feels a bit outdated. And that's how I'm going to try and mention a few things here. We're positioned at Pokemon, they're just banned because they're just deemed too strong under perfect play, even though perfect play is something hard to come by, and good players are something also hard to come by, but with much practice you can turn into that. But if a Pokemon has the right moves, EVs, you predict right, and land a potential move that was supposed to miss, well, then you're just going to ban it and get rid of it. Well, that's just a little crazy now. The problem here, that in the OU, their ban list is Ubers. Ubers is another tier list, mainly filled with legendaries. Now, you can't argue with me there. That's all Ubers is just the legendary ban list, and people have, games where they play under that. Now, let me tell you something here. Now that Greninja is technically in Ubers, will you play it in Ubers? I don't think you will, because you have the opportunity to play with other legendaries. That's just one way of putting it, because that's a way to fix OU, is that their ban list is just another tier. Why can't we try to make it to where Pokemon that aren't allowed being used in OU can have some other form of viability? Now that's in Ubers, no one's going to use it. It's pretty much useless. No one's ever going to touch that Pokemon ever. So maybe we should not even think about just banning, but maybe just putting it into another special spot. We could go over that later. Now, if a Pokemon is unpredictable and can reliably 1-for-1, apparently that's also Uber. We saw with Aegislash. Now, the definition of an Uber is probably outdated. Now we see Aegislash as an Uber. It kind of does have the stats, not really. It has a good ability, and it did become kind of unpredictable, but it really isn't a legendary. So that's why one way we could just kind of fix, Smogon a little bit, you would just update what an Uber is. The actual definition from Smogon of an Uber is that it's a Pokemon that could potentially sweep an entire team or at least go 2-0 or better, or 3-0 or anything like that. So it shows now the definition of an Uber to them now. If a Pokemon can get a perfect prediction and like a prediction +1, that's just too much. That is, oh man, that Pokemon took out my other Pokemon way too easily on a good prediction. I don't like it anymore. Greninja, in the actual sense of Greninja, it has to super one-hit KO, which it can, almost never do on a perfect player or on an entire team, and rarely on like a good player. So like Greninja has to have all that just to be pretty much useful. So who knows? Another way we can kind of fix Smogon is to just collapse the whole system, and we can kind of recognize Battlespot a bit. Now hear me out. I know it might sound crazy. Battlespot isn't just this absurd hellscape of Ubers and evasion, being spammed. And no, it isn't. You don't really see Ubers. Evasion isn't really spammed a lot, and all the Pokemon, you just see whatever you want. Everything gets played just about the same. You'll see other counters that are Pokemon, but are different games. You'll see a lot of other counters to your Pokemon, and you counter their Pokemon, so it's pretty even. It's on a bigger base, yes, because in OU we're just seeing all those matches on Showdown, so we're on a smaller scale. But in Battlespot, they do kind of have the right idea. Yeah, there are abusive outliers, that's true. But even then, it's not guaranteed, and nothing's spammed, and nothing's really banned. So that's why it's not really that. It's a competitive game. It might be a bit like, I guess there's pure imbalances, if that also makes sense. Pretty much what they could do, and just, Smogon tries their best to stay as far away from Battlespot, saying, oh, play our game. Our game mode is perfect, and it's not like Battlespot. So they want to say, hey, this is where real balance is, but that's the problem. Them saying that, but they really should embrace more official play that Pokemon's down from us, because there is a lot of Pokemon, there might be a big community, but that's not a bad thing. So there are the natural pure imbalances, but you don't really feel as restricted. So you're pretty much just able to do whatever you want. So what they could do is they could collapse the system. Everything just becomes Battlespot. Rules for a month. Yeah, every month you can try to ban 3 Pokemon, put down a vote, and try to let a lot of people ban, not just a certain 20 to I guess 30 people vote. Give a big amount of people voting, 1,000 people. That way it'll feel more democratic. We'll feel like a lot more people had a say in it, other than the few people that earn enough coil, enough rating to have a say in it, because that kind of makes it elite balance, other than just regular balance, because you have to be elite in that OU ladder tier to have a say. If you're at the bottom, they're oh, we won't listen to you. You didn't earn enough of that rating to have a vote. But if a lot of people just had votes, even though they might not know what they're talking about, but people still have those things in their head. Well, it's just Pokemon. Who cares, Now, one last thing, how Smogon we can kind of fix Smogon a little bit. We have to definitely change the definition of an Uber, and within that, there's also their philosophy. Now, the philosophy, it's heavily outdated. That thing was written pretty much around the time when they started, and that was what they wrote in saying what we want to accomplish. That's, okay, it's respectable, and I can respect Smogon for saying, hey, we're going to create a different game mode, we're going to come up with rules and Pokemon you can or cannot use, and things like that. I can understand you want to take the game they love and, mix it up a little bit, not just make it to where actual Pokemon where just you can do whatever you want. And there is no real definition of a balanced metagame in their philosophy. It's just saying their goal is for a balanced metagame, but that doesn't really actually say it. So they got to really define what an ideal balanced metagame is. They can go back and change it. Just got to rewrite it. At least when they rewrite what they are set out to do, they have some fallback. Now it's just, well, back then you guys really didn't do this, and even now you guys still, don't. But even they'll say, oh, but now we're actually, we're going to do this. We're just going to ban it. Now everything we say is right. But at least if they kind of have some evidence or proof saying, oh, but you can see here, this is, our actual intentions. This is why we're doing it. So if they update it, that way they can kind of be prepared for everything. Obviously, in Gen 5, they were kind of doing okay. A lot of people talk about in Gen 5 saying, yeah, it was balanced. The right Pokemon were banned, and the right things were banned, and a lot of other things weren't just absurdly banned for no reason. At least people had a lot more reason. But now, they really, in Gen 6, they weren't prepared for Megas. We obviously know that. The reverse power creep, as I mentioned before, came with Megas, and they just said, oh, man, these Megas are too strong, we just gotta ban them, get rid of them. Now that really seems just, wacky. It seems arbitrary. Now they need to just make a large concrete post about, this should be an Uber, but again, we gotta update the Ubers. Because the old definitions of the philosophy just hilariously outdated, as I mentioned before. And it's just compared to their decisions now, everything doesn't add up. So if they kind of just update it, we can kind of then see, well, maybe now they're starting to make sense. But for now, it feels like they aren't really making a lot of sense with what they do. And who knows what they're going to do from now on. Maybe this might be a wake-up call after the Greninja ban and some of the backlash that people gave them for that, not just coming from like me or other people, but it might be a time for them to actually maybe fix the tier that they're in OU. Maybe just, I guess, make a few more people or Pokemon come back, or at least kind of reset everything. Maybe if they just reset and had everything on a clean slate, like since it was a new generation, we just have a clean slate, that might be able to just a good start over. We can kind of build the blocks up again, and then just fix Smogon itself, just kind of just go back in time and say, well, yeah, the game was different then and the game's different now, so let's just kind of adapt to what the game is now so we can go off that. That's just what I think. I'm not really going to take sides. I'm not going to underlie Smogon a lot. I've liked the things they've done in the past, but recently it's getting a bit murky here and things are getting a little bit questionable. So now I think it's time that they just kind of wake up and just try to fix things themselves and see what they can do. Smogon's a good organization. They're a good group of people, but lately, we don't know. We'll have to just see, and only time will tell what will happen.